This is the second part of the Offensive Pyro guide, so go and check out part 1 if you haven't already. He goes into some detail about which loadouts to use, as well as some basic strategies for each of the different weapon options. In this second part, we're going to really look at detail at some more advanced strategies and tactics you can use to maximize your effectiveness as an offensive pyro in Team Fortress 2. Let's get right into the good stuff. Here's some tips and tricks about how you can use the Phlogistinator to its maximum potential. For the absolute maximum crit charge and general usefulness, use the detonator or the scorch shot. But you can try out the flare gun, the man melter and the thermal thruster if you'd like, and I go into a lot more detail about these weapons in part 1 of this guide. Now I think there's a 5-step checklist of golden rules that you should aim for when using the Phlogistinator to its maximum potential. 1. We want to charge our crits fast. 2. We want to charge our crits safely. 3. We want to activate our crits in a safe area. 4. We want to inflict maximum damage on the enemy with our crits, taking out medics and other high priority targets if possible. And 5, if possible we want to escape after using our crits and then repeat that process all over again. Sounds pretty simple, yeah? And once you get the hang of it, it is quite simple, especially against inexperienced players. The problem is that good players are going to make it as hard as possible for you to complete the 5-step checklist, but as you get better, you'll be able to deal with these threats. First, let's focus on how to charge our crits safely and fast. Using the scorch shot and the detonator, we can charge our Phlogistinator crits very fast by consistently lighting enemies on fire. We want to be spamming our secondary weapons from range, lighting enemies on fire from a safe distance, and building up that crit meter really fast. For maximum safety, we want to be playing near our team, near our medic, and ensure that we're in a fairly secure area. We want to have full health, an overheal, or at least 151 health at all times to avoid instantly dying to a sniper quickscope that does 150 damage if he hits you in the head. At medium and long range, our only real threats are unlucky crit projectiles, spies coming from behind, or enemy snipers at long range. We can usually see crit projectiles coming from a range and dodge them if we need to, and we can always check around for spies, so the biggest threat is being taken out by that enemy sniper. That's why we want to be at least 151 health when using a scorch shot and detonator to charge our crits at medium and long range. That ensures the enemy snipers don't take us out with a 150 damage headshot or a 150 damage body shot. If you want to charge up your crit meter faster, you usually have to sacrifice a little bit of safety by closing the distance on enemies. This makes it easier to hit your flares, but you also expose yourself to close range threats like soldiers, demo men, scouts, heavies, pyros and even more. Since we don't have access to air blast when using the Phlogistinator, we need to be extra careful when charging up our crits at close range. We can't defend ourselves against rockets, grenades or other close range threats like heavies. That's why I recommend that when you're closing distance on enemies, you really want to get a full overheal from your medic if possible, or at least be at full health. This makes it a lot safer when charging your crits up at close range, because you can survive a couple of rockets, shotgun blasts, grenades and more. Also focus on abusing cover and terrain when charging your crits, especially when you're at close range. Use the firing arc of your secondary weapons to shoot over walls, ledges and terrain, whilst remaining relatively safe. If you use this tactic while standing on the high ground, you'll find that you're much harder to hit and enemies won't be able to harass you as much with shots and projectiles, compared to if you were in the open and exposed to the entire enemy team. Another strategy to stay safe while charging your crits is to use corners and walls to minimize the time that you're exposed to enemies. This is a really common theme across many FPS games like Counter-Strike and Valorant, and is a great habit to learn in TF2 as well. Peeking around corners, firing off a flare, and then getting back behind cover is a great way of safely charging your crits at closer ranges. Just be careful of peeking the same corner several times in a row, because an enemy sniper might notice this pattern and take you out the next time you peek. The quickest way to charge up your crits is to pick off enemies who are out of position with your Phlogistinator, or hitting multiple enemies with your scorch shot and detonator flares. Picking off out of position enemies requires awareness, game sense and map knowledge, and it really is something that you just need to learn by playing the game more, so definitely keep playing TF2 to improve these skills. If you're especially new to the game, then try out all the classes to see what they do, and if you enjoy Pyro, come back to these videos and try and apply some of the tactics and strategies in your own gameplay. But yeah, if you can take out an enemy who's out of position, that's a huge chunk of free crit charge for your Phlogistinator, so keep an eye out for these opportunities to quickly charge your crits. Right, so we've charged our crit meter safely and quickly by using some of these tips, but how do we actually activate our crits safely, and how do we get the most out of them? We want to use our Phlogistinator crits in a safe area where an enemy can't take us out right after our taunt and rollover ends. But equally, as important, we want to be as close to the enemies as possible so we can maximize the duration and effectiveness of our Phlogistinator crits. So there's definitely a balance between safety and efficiency, but usually you want to be on the safer side, because you can always build up another round of crits. If you have a friendly medic with you, You can activate your crits in a more aggressive area, since your medic will probably uber you, or at least keep you overhealed as you go in. Without a medic though, we want to activate our crits while we're totally safe, so we don't just get taken out immediately. Always try and activate your crits with your back to a wall. This makes it much harder for enemy spies to backstab you right as your taunt ends. Second, try and activate your crits while you're with your team, or a sentry gun for example, as they can protect you from any enemies looking to take you out. Third, activate your crits from behind a wall or corner, because enemies are going to need to overextend to have a chance of taking you out. This allows your teammates to help you easily and potentially save you. Finally, make sure you're not in the sights of an enemy sniper, because it's pretty easy for them to charge up a headshot on you right as your taunt vulnerability ends. You'll notice in a lot of these clips that I'm starting my taunt very close to the enemy's front line, but always behind a corner or a wall, and usually in a safe area that an enemy can immediately get to. You can always close the distance on enemies with the power jack, but just be careful because you get a 20% damage vulnerability while you're holding the power jack. Okay, so you charge your crits, activate them safely. Now how do we actually get the most out of them? We want to close the distance as quickly as possible, and either take out a high priority target, or several lower priority targets. We also want to escape if we can, but as long as we trade from multiple enemies or a high priority target, it's usually worth it. High priority targets include enemy medics, an engineer and his sentry nest if you're on attack, or an especially strong or skilled player like a great demo man or a good sniper on the other team. If you can trade 1-for-1 with these targets, then it's usually a good trade, and if you can take out several enemies, then it's probably a good trade, because it alleviates pressure from your team if you're defending, or creates an opportunity to press the attack further if you're on the attacking team. So we'll activate crits and round the corner, and that loud taunt will alert the enemies, so they're going to be doing one of three things. One, they'll be expecting you and pre-firing projectiles and bullets at the corner you're coming around. In this case, try and push with a friendly medic overheal or ubercharge, or if you don't have a medic, try delaying your push. You'll have crits for around 9 seconds, since it's a 10-second duration minus the duration of the taunt, so you could wait for a few seconds and then go in once enemies think they're safe. This also has the added benefit of catching enemies who didn't hear or notice your Phlogistinator crits being activated, so these enemies might be running up to you without even expecting you to appear around the corner with crits and just immediately take them out. Scenario 2, the enemies are going to be completely unaware and won't react to your crits at all. This is pretty common in servers with newer or inexperienced players, and it's a big contributor to why many players think the Phlogistinator is overpowered. This is the ideal situation, but obviously you shouldn't rely on the enemies being bad. It's a bad habit in the long run. You can achieve a similar effect against skilled enemies by activating your Phlogistinator crits much further away and then using your detonator or your power jack to close the distance really quickly. You'll still have a few seconds of crits left after reaching the enemies, which is more than enough to take out a few enemies. Scenario 3, most of the enemies are going to be unaware, but there's a few good players or threats like sentry guns that stop you from fully committing to your push. In this case, we're either going to try and sacrifice to take out a high priority target like a medic or an engineer in a sentry nest, or we're going to retreat and just build up another round of crits. It's up to you to decide which is a better option, but if I was playing seriously in a game, then I'd always retreat and just wait for a better opportunity. As you get more experience, you're going to get better at timing your crit activation, and you're going to get better at knowing when to trade for a high priority target versus retreating and just trying again in the future with another round of crits. Once we've used our crits and taken out some enemies, we're going to try and retreat and reset if possible, and then repeat that process all over again. Use your mobility tools like your power jack and your detonator to get back to your team as quickly as possible. You can also try retreating while hitting enemies with a scorch shot to knock them back, and inflict a strong afterburn that might dissuade them or stop them from chasing you too far. Or if you've used your crits, you can just sacrifice for another high priority target if you see a medic or a sniper for example, who's in range of your just basic flamethrowers, but overall that's the main game plan as an offensive pyro who's using the Phlogistinator. Build up your crits quickly and safely, activate them in a safe area, and then close the distance on enemies as quickly as possible so you can maximize your Phlogistinator crits and devastate the enemy team. Here's some rapid fire tips and a couple of advanced strategies that you can use with the Phlogistinator. Once you've mastered that basic 5-step plan, you can start adding these more advanced tactics into your own gameplay, and you'll see exactly how effective they can be. Charge up your crits from medium range with your secondary weapon, then activate your crits from a weird and unusual location, like on the flank or on the high ground. Then, use your mobility tools like the detonator or the power jack to surprise enemies as you come from a weird angle that they don't expect with your crits. If you've almost filled up your crits meter, but you can't quite get that last little bit of crit charge, try fake taunting with the Phlogistinator to scare enemies. Then, you can try rounding the corner and flaming enemies a bit, who will probably be retreating because they expect you to have crits, In reality, you're going to be able to flame them for that last little bit of charge, retreat, and then use your crits for real. You can also try fake taunting several times in a short period, so when you actually activate your crits for real, the enemies won't respect it as much, and they might be closer and less focused on you, and that sets you up for some easy frags. Get into the habit of getting a full overheal from your medic before going in. If you don't have a medic, then make sure you're at least at full health before going in with your crits. Otherwise, you're going to be taken out very quickly without really accomplishing anything. You can also try activating your crits as other teammates are going in, because they'll provide a distraction for the enemy team, whilst you come in with crits and clear up the confused enemies. Watch my Mastering the Detonator guide to get good at detonate jumping. Once you've mastered this technique, your Phlogistinator crit pushes become way deadlier. You can charge your crits safely, and then detonate a jump onto a completely unexpected area, activate your crits on the flank, and this is an amazing way of surprising enemies and taking out groups of enemies during their push. You can also detonate a jump towards enemies to catch them if you're just out of range, and this is an amazing strategy that makes your crit pushes way deadlier. Instead of having to fight your way past a wall of enemies at the front line, you can try detonate jumping past them or over them to get to that pesky sniper or enemy medic in the backline. When you're defending and you're using a Phlogistinator, you can wait for enemies to push in with their Uber, and then activate your crits as their Uber is about to run out. Then you can detonate a jump into the enemies to take them out before they can retreat or continue pushing. The downside to this tactic is that the enemies might do a lot of damage with their Uber charge before you can take them out. You can try using your crits while they're trying to charge up their Uber, and if you can take out the enemy medic by detonate jumping onto him, or flanking and critting him, then that is a huge pick. Overall though, just have fun with this weapon and its playstyle. You can achieve similar results with the Dragon's Fury once you get good with it, and for a more balanced and professional playstyle, try using the Degreaser or the Flamethrower with any close or medium range secondary weapon. You'll have the damage of your WM1 flames, along with the amazing utility that your Air Blast provides, and I'm going to be talking more about this in the other Pyro playstyle guides in the future. And if you made it to the end of the video, in this bit, then check out my pinned post for a hidden giveaway link that expires in just 2 days as I upload this video. There's a couple of strange Pyro weapons and some painted Pyro cosmetics. As a huge thanks for watching the video. So again, I hope you really enjoyed this video, and take care guys.